At 60, Mike Wolfe, the motorcycle-loving small-town picker turned international television icon, finally broke his silence, and the entire entertainment world stopped to listen. For months, speculation had swirled through tabloids, Facebook fan groups, and collector forums. Was Mike stepping away from television? Had he retired quietly after years on the road? Or was there something deeper, something heavier that he hadn't yet addressed? Fans wondered, worried, and debated, but no one had answers. Until now. Late one evening, without fanfare or the usual media buildup, Wolfe posted a short video message to his verified social media accounts. The clip, filmed in what appeared to be his Tennessee workshop, cluttered with antique signs, chrome motorcycle parts, and dusty Americana treasures, began simply. "Hey everyone," he said softly, eyes tired yet steady. "I've been quiet for a long time, and I think it's time I finally talk." That opening line alone triggered a flood of emotion from followers who had watched him for over a decade travel backroads, shake hands with everyday collectors, and uncover forgotten stories buried in barns and attics. Wolfe didn't sound like a man delivering a rehearsed statement. There was no press agent's polish, no corporate tone. His words came slowly, like someone carefully unpacking the weight of years. He acknowledged the silence, the gap since his last major interview, the absence of public comment after his co-host Frank Fritz's health struggles, and the growing online tension between fans divided over rumors of a falling out. "People talk," he said, glancing off camera for a moment. "That's the nature of this world now. But what they don't see is what happens when the cameras stop rolling. When the people you care about aren't just your co-workers, they're your history." For longtime viewers of American Pickers, that statement hit hard. The show, once defined by the brotherly chemistry between Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz, had become a staple of comfort television. A blend of road adventure, treasure hunting, and Americana storytelling. But in recent years, its tone shifted. Frank's departure, followed by his health complications and eventual passing, left fans mourning both a person and an era. And through it all, Wolfe remained publicly silent, fueling endless speculation about guilt, grief, and broken friendships. So when he finally spoke, it wasn't about promoting a new season or launching a spin-off. It was about honesty. "I didn't know how to talk about it," he confessed in the video. "Every time I tried to find words, they felt wrong. So I stayed quiet, maybe too quiet." His voice cracked slightly, and the pause that followed was more powerful than anything he said after. It was a moment of raw humanity that transcended celebrity. Within minutes of posting, the video spread like wildfire. Major entertainment outlets picked it up, framing it as Mike Wolfe's emotional confession and the American Pickers moment fans waited years for. Comments flooded in by the thousands. Some thanked him for opening up. Others expressed their heartbreak, saying his vulnerability brought them to tears. A few shared how the show had shaped their love for collecting, or how it inspired them to see beauty in forgotten things. This wasn't just a nostalgic celebrity update. It felt like a cultural reset. For the first time in years, Wolfe wasn't seen as the confident TV personality driving across the Midwest in search of rusty gold. He was a man confronting loss, regret, and legacy in front of millions. And yet, despite the emotional tone, there was something empowering about it. A quiet resilience in how he chose to face his audience. The media frenzy that followed mirrored that of a major celebrity comeback. Entertainment sites analyzed every frame of the video, noting the vintage Harley sign behind him, the old Coca-Cola clock ticking softly in the background, the faint sound of crickets. All subtle nods to the Americana world that made him famous. Fans pointed out that even his surroundings told a story. The life of a man surrounded by memories, trying to make peace with them. By the next morning, the clip had amassed millions of views across platforms. Twitter, now X, trended with hashtags like Mike Wolfe Speaks, and hashtag American Pickers Forever. News anchors discussed it on morning shows, while former co-stars and friends chimed in with messages of support. What surprised most wasn't just what Wolfe said, it was the timing. Many felt that at 60, he could have quietly faded from the spotlight. Instead, he chose transparency. He chose to speak, not for promotion, but for closure. The moment marked more than a personal confession. It symbolized the shifting relationship between celebrities and their audiences. Gone were the days of guarded PR statements and polished apologies. Mike's raw, self-shot message reminded people that authenticity still resonates in an era dominated by filters and pre-written press releases. It wasn't just what he said that left fans speechless. It was how real it felt. As the video continued, Mike Wolfe's tone shifted from reflection to raw honesty. He wasn't trying to script a comeback or carefully rebuild a public image. This was different. This was a man opening a wound that had never fully healed. "I owe a lot of people an explanation," he said quietly. "And maybe I owe myself one too." Those words lingered, heavy with emotion, as he began unpacking what the last few years had really been like behind closed doors. He spoke of long, restless nights in his Nashville home, nights when the silence in the house was louder than any argument could have been. After Frank's health issues, things just stopped, Wolfe admitted. "We went from talking every day on the road, laughing in diners, arguing about who spotted a sign first, to nothing. Just silence. It's strange how fast that happens. One day you're filming with your best friend, and the next you're reading about them in the news." Fans who'd followed American Pickers from its earliest seasons knew exactly what he meant. Mike and Frank weren't just co-hosts, they were brothers in spirit, bonded through dusty barns, highway miles, and years of mutual grind. They built something authentic, something that resonated with middle America. Not the gloss of Hollywood, but the grit of real life. And yet, fame has its price. Rumors of creative differences, contracts, and personal tension had swirled for years, and when Frank's health took a tragic turn, speculation turned cruel. Some accused Mike of abandonment. Others painted him as heartless. Through it all, he said nothing. Until now. Wolfe paused mid-sentence, visibly holding back tears. "There were things I should have said sooner," he continued. "I thought I was giving space. I thought silence was respect. But silence isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's fear wearing a polite mask." That line struck a chord across social media almost instantly. Within hours, quotes from that exact sentence were circulating widely, printed on fan pages, reposted on Instagram stories, even shared by celebrity bloggers who praised its emotional truth. He spoke, too, about the hidden cost of fame, how years of cameras, contracts, and deadlines can distort genuine friendship. "When you live your life on television," he said, "you forget that real life doesn't come with a script. There's no director yelling 'cut' when someone gets hurt." He revealed how, after the show's early success, the pair were pulled in different directions by the demands of fame and production schedules. "You start as two guys chasing rusty treasures in old barns," he said, "but before long, people start treating you like brands instead of humans, and you forget what it was like before the lights came on." Fans, moved by his vulnerability, began flooding comment sections with messages of understanding. Some even shared their own stories of losing friends to time, ego, or miscommunication. Wolfe's words resonated deeply because they transcended celebrity. They were universal. Everyone had a Frank in their life, someone they loved, drifted from, and never quite found their way back to. As the confession deepened, Wolfe opened up about his personal battles with guilt. "There's this thing nobody talks about, survivor's guilt," he said. "You move forward because the world expects you to, but inside, you're stuck in that moment that changed everything." Every barn I walk into now, every old motorcycle I find, I still hear Frank's laugh. I still wait for him to crack a joke. His voice wavered again. Sometimes I wish I could go back and do one thing differently. Pick up the phone more. For a man known for his calm, confident, on-camera presence, this new vulnerability shocked fans. The comments section beneath the video quickly filled with emotional replies. "Mike, this made me cry. We forgive you." Frank would be proud. Even longtime critics of the show admitted that this version of Wolfe, stripped of polish, honest to the core, felt more real than anything American Pickers had ever broadcast. What made his statement even more compelling was the way he intertwined grief with gratitude. "The truth is," he said, "this show gave me everything. It gave me a voice. It gave me friends. It gave me a family I didn't expect. But it also took a lot from me. Privacy, peace, time. And now, at 60, I'm learning how to get some of that back."
He spoke of mornings spent alone in his garage, fixing old bikes not for resale or filming, but just to feel normal again. "I realized I'd spent my whole life chasing the next find," he reflected. "But somewhere along the line I stopped appreciating what I already had. I think that's what grief does. It teaches you how to see again." This wasn't a man trying to redeem his public image. It was a man trying to reclaim his humanity. And in doing so, he gave fans something much more valuable than nostalgia. He gave them truth. Wolfe's reflections weren't just about loss. They were about self-forgiveness. They reminded people that even icons can struggle to say goodbye, even public figures can carry private guilt, and that sometimes the hardest apology isn't to another person, it's to yourself. By the time the video ended, Wolfe's eyes looked clearer, lighter, as though unburdened. "If you're watching this," he said in closing, "and there's someone you've drifted from, someone you meant to call, don't wait like I did. Reach out. Don't let pride or fear write your story for you." That final message transformed the video from a confession into something more powerful, a quiet plea for reconnection, echoing far beyond television screens, and perhaps that's why fans called it his most important episode ever. Even though no cameras rolled, no deals were made, and no treasures were found. For once, the story wasn't about rusty antiques or hidden gems. It was about something infinitely rarer, the courage to speak when silence has lasted too long. After nearly 20 minutes of heartfelt reflection, Wolfe's message took a more hopeful turn. He straightened up, a subtle but noticeable change in posture, as if a quiet weight had lifted. "I don't want this to just be about loss," he said. "I want it to be about what comes next." That transition marked the emotional pivot in his statement. Viewers who had watched with tears in their eyes now leaned forward, sensing something new, the return of the determined dreamer who had once driven across America in search of forgotten beauty. Wolfe announced that American Pickers was not ending. In fact, he intended to bring it back with renewed purpose. "This show has always been about more than antiques," he said. "It's about people. It's about the stories we tell through what we find. Every rusty sign, every old bike, every photograph, they all carry someone's history." He paused, smiling faintly. "And I think it's time we keep telling those stories, maybe in a different way." He revealed that production would resume later in the year, but with a new structure, one more focused on connection, legacy and authenticity rather than television spectacle. "I want to get back to the roots," he continued. "The small towns, the real folks who've kept their memories alive through the things they've saved. That's where the heart of America really lives." Fans instantly latched onto that sentiment, flooding social media with excitement. For them, American Pickers wasn't just a TV show. It was comfort, a glimpse into a simpler world where craftsmanship, nostalgia, and human stories mattered. Wolfe also hinted that he wouldn't be doing it alone. Without revealing names, he teased new partnerships and collaborations that would honor the past while bringing new voices to the table. Many interpreted this as a signal that he might be mentoring a new generation of pickers, a symbolic passing of the torch that still kept his hand on the wheel. "If I've learned anything," he said, It's that legacy isn't about holding on forever. It's about making sure what you built keeps growing when you're gone. What made this moment resonate was how personal it felt. Wolfe wasn't pitching a business idea. He was describing a mission. The way he spoke about Americana, the rust, the wood, the faded paint of history, carried a spiritual undertone. "Every object I've ever picked has a heartbeat," he said softly, "and sometimes I think they choose us, not the other way around. Maybe that's how I'll keep Frank's memory alive, by finding those pieces that remind me of the laughter, the road, and the meaning behind all of it." By the time he finished, viewers weren't just hopeful about a show's return. They were inspired by a man who found healing in his craft. His words weren't about fame or ratings, they were about rediscovery. He made fans believe again that history still matters, that stories still connect us, and that even in loss, there's always a reason to keep searching. The reaction to Mike Wolfe's heartfelt message was nothing short of extraordinary. Within hours, major entertainment outlets were buzzing with headlines that echoed the same sentiment. Mike Wolfe breaks down walls, the Pickers' most honest moment. Television's quiet rebel finds his voice again. What began as a quiet, self-recorded video soon evolved into a viral phenomenon, uniting fans, collectors, and even critics in collective admiration. Social media platforms were flooded with clips, quotes, and fan-made montages celebrating his return. On TikTok, viewers paired his emotional lines with old clips of him and Frank laughing in dusty barns or sharing jokes during road trips. Hashtags like Dosha Mike Wolfe Returns, Stasha's American Pickers Legacy, and Vosha's Rust and Redemption dominated timelines for days. It wasn't just nostalgia driving the response, it was respect. People weren't applauding a celebrity comeback. They were witnessing a man reclaiming his humanity after years of silence. The emotional honesty of his confession resonated far beyond the fan base of American Pickers. Journalists called it a masterclass in vulnerability. Psychologists on talk shows discussed how his words touched a cultural nerve about friendship, forgiveness, and grief. Even fellow reality TV personalities, from antique dealers to home renovation stars, publicly thanked him for showing that authenticity still had power in an industry often accused of being scripted and soulless. For longtime followers, the response felt deeply personal. Some shared stories of how they started collecting because of him. Others admitted that the show had brought their families closer, a father and son bonding over episodes, a grandmother recalling her childhood through the antiques Mike unearthed. "He reminded us," one fan wrote on Facebook, "that every piece of junk has a soul, and so does every person who carries regret." Wolfe, ever humble, responded briefly in a follow-up post. "I didn't expect this. I just wanted to speak from the heart. Thank you for listening." That simplicity, once again, became the reason people admired him. There was no grand rebranding, no marketing spin, just gratitude. Entertainment analysts have since called this the second chapter of his career, not defined by ratings but by redemption. His message, though sparked by grief, evolved into something far larger, a reminder that resilience isn't loud or glamorous. Sometimes it's a quiet voice in a messy workshop, admitting pain and choosing to move forward anyway. In the end, Mike Wolfe's silence didn't break him. It refined him. His words left millions speechless, not because of drama or spectacle, but because they were real. And in an era hungry for authenticity, that truth became the most valuable thing he's ever found.